Welcome back to the Price of Business. I am your host, Kevin Price, talking to you about you and your business. Every week he comes in like clockwork, keeping us Texans, us Houstonians, informed of some of the things that are happening on a national front, plus a great spin on what's happening as far as the news. Steve Beaman, he's with the Society for the Advancement of Financial Education. We are continuing a talk about what's happening on the news front. Too much. That's the problem, is there's too much happening on the news front. Anthony Weiner he's just a wiener. I mean, that's just the bottom line. He announced that he's running for mayor, and he had this really wimpy ad in his announcement about running, and I know I'm a screw-up, but I think I'd be a great mayor anyway. And then he, talks about the fact that, he has this website, and on his website he talks about the great city that he wants to be mayor of. And the photo in that city, of the city that's on his website, is Philadelphia. You got to love that. What do you think about that there, Steve Beaman?
Well, what I think is when God created humor, he created Anthony Weiner. This guy is a complete excuse for government. In fact, he's the poster child for people who can't compete in the private sector, so they run to government.
This is true.
If this guy gets elected, the people in New York should have their collective head examined.
This is true. Hey, I just realized he's running for mayor of New York. Now, what's interesting about that, so is Bloomberg said he's not running again?
I think he's limited by their laws on how many times he can run.
I thought they suspended that. Didn't they vote that down? Because it was a 2-term limit. He's been there, at least 3 or 4 terms?
Well, they may have, and so the emperor may just be voluntarily leaving. We'll have to see.
Yeah.
After he's, of course, told everybody they have to be thin except for himself. They can't smoke except for himself. All the things he's said that everybody else can't do, but he can.
Yeah, he's got some serious codependency issues. No question about it. I mean, it's like, really? I mean, what a control freak. So let's talk a little bit. You talked about the trifecta, and I agree because it's the only things they're talking about. But the biggest scandal remains largely not discussed, which was, in my opinion, the biggest one of all of these was the Fast and Furious, because it led to the loss of hundreds of Mexican lives and at least a couple U.S. lives. And that one is completely on the back burner.
Well, clearly, Fast and Furious is another scandal that has not been answered yet. We don't have the bottom of it. We don't know who ordered it other than the holder, people. We've got to figure that one out as well. And I think when you put all 4 of these together, it just shows the philosophy of this government is one of tyranny, and that's what it's about.
Yeah. So what do you think? What do you project happening as we go forward?
I think what you've got in a major impact is the Republicans will keep the House in 14. They may pick up some seats in the Senate now as a result of this. So the Obama agenda from his immigration policies and everything else will not pass. So I think what you've got is, in effect, a lame duck president as of right now. Whether or not this will touch the White House and the Oval Office for an impeachment process, I doubt. I think they've put a circle of protection around him like none other. So my guess is it won't get to him. It'll stop with Holder. But you still will have the Republicans regaining, because of, frankly, the Tea Party groups regaining some of their strength in 14.
Okay, that's good news. That's good news. So I think a great story, a feel-good story, and let's face it, you and I could use a feel-good story with all the bad stuff going on, is I saw on Friday on the Today Show that the Jersey Shore is open again. It is open in full force. Christie said right after Hurricane Sandy that we're gonna have this thing operating again by Memorial Day, and people chuckled, and that's nice, feel-good optimism. But it happened. That thing looks great. I don't know if you caught that story.
I did, and that is kudos to Governor Christie. I know he's caught a lot of flack for his leaning to the center or the left, whichever you want to call it. But on this one, we have to respect that he did pull it off. They got it ready for Memorial Day, and that's a wonderful thing for all the residents of that coast who suffered so badly under Sandy. And it does indicate also, Kevin, as you and I know, this is a very resilient nation, and we work together as citizens. We can solve almost any problem that comes up. And
yeah,
that's
absolutely.
the strength of our nation.
Absolutely. And I think Chris Christie is a great governor for a state like New Jersey. In my opinion, he'd be unacceptable in the vast majority of states. For a state like New Jersey, he is a great governor. And I tell you what, he does do what he says he'll do, and he works extremely hard. I hope to God he stays governor of New Jersey. I don't want him running for President of the United States. But props to him, props to the people of New Jersey showing their toughness that they are famous for. Now, what about this? Wall Street slips on angst over longevity of the Fed stimulus. That is a headline from Reuters. What do you think about that? Do you think that there's a lot of angst because there seems to be some unpredictability over what the Fed's going to be doing?
Well, Kevin, there's no question, as you and I work with both businesses and individuals in the financial area, the markets are skittish right now. They're worried that if the Fed takes the lid off of interest rates, they'll pop up not to 1 or 2%, but 4 or 5%. And that's got the market on a very thin, an ice sheet. So when you had the situation that Bernanke came out and said we may stop the quantitative easing process, the Japanese markets reacted violently to that, losing 17% in their trading session. The U.S. market's been a little more stable. There's really nowhere else to go. So people, instead of putting their money in fixed income, are in equities, and that's held the market up. But I do think it's a situation where folks need to be aware that if the Fed quits their $85 billion a month buying of the U.S. Treasuries, those rates could go up. And as that happens, you'll see a slowdown in the economy, a slowdown in corporate earnings, and that will negatively affect the market.
Yeah. How is the Fed making those $85 billion a month purchases?
Well, it's not as insidious as people think. They don't just print $85 billion a month in new money. First of all, they actually made money on some of the bailout programs they did. When they put together TALF and some of these services, I don't know what you want to call them, these bailout programs, they actually made money. So they're using some of that profit to do this buying. And the other thing they're doing is using the banking system to do it because they're keeping their reserve rate so low, incenting the major banks to step up and help.
Okay. All right. And so what is your thoughts about that policy going forward?
I think the Fed recognizes the danger of a loose money policy. They look at inflation as a capacity-driven issue. Most people now don't. They look at it as a devaluation issue, like we saw in the 70s when oil prices shot up so much. So I think the Fed is very conscious of that, and Bernanke is trying to get some control of this to get out of the stimulus program he's been running without interest rates jumping up. So I just would urge folks to look at that, keep an eye on it. To the extent they're involved in the equity markets, celebrate that we've done so well since 2009, but begin to look at how you can protect the gains that you've got.
Okay. And when you say done so well, you're talking particularly in the investment arena, not other aspects of the economy.
No, clearly the stock market has doubled in value, but unemployment stays up around 14%. By the way, the reason the markets are up is corporate earnings are good, and they're not good because of top-line sales growth. They're good because American corporations run by private individuals are very good at cutting costs and building efficiencies when the economy turns bad. So out of that cost-cutting and efficiency improvement, we've seen their profits go up.
Yeah, interesting. Thanks so much for being with us. As always, Steve Beaman, he's with the Society for the Advancement of Financial Education, and a big part of my work that I'm doing here as well. We got our cohort, Jeremy Kitchen, helping us as we grow this, and we look at developing, and not only in Houston, but around the state, and excited about being a part of your vision.
I am looking forward to getting down there, Kevin. I always enjoy being with you and your guests down there in Houston. I look forward to the folks at the Pachyderm Club and the Sugarland Tea Party, and hopefully a few more, and we'll continue to work to move the dial in America.
You bet. All right. When we come back, we're going to have more for you. Do want to remind you, Steve's on every week here on the first of the week, giving us his insights, what's happening in the news. Make sure you check him out. And also make sure you check out the SteveBeamanGroup.org, which is the easiest way, in my opinion, to get over to the Society's website. And, man, the content that you produce is incredible. I thought I was a content-producing machine till I met Steve Beaman. It's phenomenal what he's doing. All right, when we come back, we're going to have more for you. You're listening to The Price of Business.